is the CanMar Morning Talk Show, a fresh take on what's happening in the cannabis and psychedelic spaces. I'm your host, Melissa Jane Sydie. Join me as I sit down and have thought-provoking conversations with some of the industry's top experts and trendsetters from around the globe. Hello everyone and welcome to a very special episode of the CanMar Morning Talk Show. I'm your host, Melissa Jane Sydie, and today I'm joined by the mastermind behind the Level Up Budtender Education Program, Tabitha Fritz. Today we are pulling back the curtain on CanMar's exclusive 1 week only free Level Up Edibles Masterclass taking place from November 27th to December 1st. Let me introduce you to the wonderful Level Up instructor, Tabitha herself. Tabitha isn't just an instructor, she's the brains behind cannabis retail proficiency. Drawing from years of hands-on experience in the cannabis industry, she stands as the author of numerous success stories. Tabitha's journey spans many years and various roles in the Canadian cannabis landscape, from her roots as a bud tender, selling edibles at her own Fritz's Cannabis Company market table in the Canadian legacy market, to her prestigious position as Director of Cannabis Education for a legal cannabis retailer. Throughout this diverse journey, Tabitha has cultivated an intimate understanding of cannabis products, the nuances of the cannabis consumer, and the ability to expertly navigate a spectrum of questions about cannabis. With Tabitha and Level Up, you're not just learning, you're embarking on a transformative journey led by the very best in the field. Welcome, Tabitha. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. Very excited for this.
Well, let's kick off the show today with a brief introduction to yourself and Level Up. Of course, I touched on a bit of your background in the introduction, but perhaps you can share a bit of the backstory of how Level Up was conceived.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I worked as the Director of Education for a licensed retailer in Ontario, in Canada. And in that work, I became very familiar with the cannabis education programs that were already out there for bud tenders. And let me tell you, there weren't many. I took a look at the ones that were in the US. I took a look at what was available in Canada. And I noticed a lot of gaps in what we wanted to be training our bud tenders on in the store. And so I wrote that education program for that retailer. And then, COVID happened and the world fell apart and everything changed. And so I found myself, without a job. That company closed down, they changed, they restructured. And I began taking on consulting work for other cannabis shops that were, licensed here in Ontario. They also asked me to build their bud tender education programs. So I became really familiar with understanding exactly what needed to go into a bud tender education program to make sure that bud tenders were really equipped to recommend products in a way that was both compliant, but did a good job of sales and customer service. So I took a step back during COVID. I found myself at home during lockdown with not a lot to do. And I actually built Level Up. I built a bud tender education program in my closet over the course of a couple of months. I researched everything I needed to know. I recorded the videos. I put together PowerPoints. I put together the documents, and I built out this program. And then over the next few years, I had the opportunity to deploy it a few times and got feedback on it and continued to build and iterate it and make it even better. And I think where we're at now with the program is really, it's the best program available on the market. I'm very proud of it. I'm very happy with it. And I know that any bud tender who goes through that program is going to come out smarter and better equipped to work with their customers.
That is so incredible. And it's really amazing that we've seen a lot of these incredible things come out of a really dark situation like COVID. Like the silver lining is really these incredible projects like Level Up that have come from it. And we at CanMar are also so thrilled to have yourself and Level Up as part of the CanMar family, Tabitha.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled to be part of it. Like, honestly, it's been amazing to have such a strong team behind me who's able to do all of these things that I'm not great at in terms of, helping get it out there to people. I want people to take this course. I want people to learn more about weed, about how it works with their bodies and how they can make the right recommendations for their customers, right? My goal is to have an army of bud tenders across the nation who are equipped to make the right recommendations for their customers. So I'm thrilled to have the CanMar team behind me and helping me get this out, get this distributed to bud tenders across the country.
Amazing. It really does take a village, right?
Yes.
So before we dive into kind of the broader conversation of the importance of education in the cannabis industry, as we know it is very important, let's talk about the main reason we're really here sitting down and having this conversation, which is to talk about CanMar's exclusive 1 week only Level Up Edibles Masterclass. Tabitha, as the creator of this masterclass as well, can you tell everyone a little bit about the masterclass, what it's all about, and why this is such an exciting, not to be missed opportunity?
Yeah. So I am an expert, not just in cannabis, but in edibles. So I really got my start in the cannabis industry back in 2016 when my husband and I started Fritz's Cannabis Company, which was an underground edibles company. And we sold at the Toronto green markets, which were sort of like these underground farmers markets for cannabis products. And because we were doing that, right, and as an entrepreneur, I really not only want to develop really good products and understand about those products, but I want those products to serve my customers' needs. So in the course of running and operating that business, I did a ton of research into edibles, specifically into understanding how they work with the human body, how they're processed differently, what an edibles experience is like, what different factors exist in the onset and duration of an edibles experience, different differentiators for edibles, how to choose an input, how to think about the kind of edible that you're eating, what types of impacts those will have on the consumers. So when CanMar said, listen, we want to put together a masterclass for people, what's a topic that you're really, really well versed in? Edibles immediately came to mind because I have so much knowledge about that specific consumption method that I can't wait to share it with others. And so by the fact that the masterclass is free is even more amazing because anyone can access it. They don't have to pay for it. They don't have to say, oh, I can't afford that. Anyone can access the masterclass for free and can learn all about edibles. And if you're a bud tender, you can really learn how to recommend the right edibles for every customer and understand what the different differentiators are in that product so that you can work with a customer even more effectively.
Absolutely incredible. And as you all heard it here, it is absolutely free. What are you waiting for? Don't miss out. Registration is now open. So please go ahead and register for this free masterclass. You will not be sorry. It's really incredible. And also stick around and listen to the rest of this show, watch the rest of the show, because we will be doing a very special surprise announcement towards the end of this episode. So stick around. You definitely don't want to miss out on that. So Tabitha, let's talk, now that we've spoken a little bit about the masterclass, and we'll jump more into more details on this a bit later, but let's talk a little bit about the business value of educating employees for retailers. So Tabitha, in your experience, how does investing in the education of cannabis retail employees contribute to the success of a business?
Look, we know that one of the main reasons that employees stay with a company is because there are training and development opportunities. There was a LinkedIn survey that was done a few years ago, and it showed that 93% of employees would stay with a company if there were development opportunities for that employee in that company. Okay, so across the board, regardless of industry, when employees feel that their employer values them and wants them to improve and is interested in investing in their career path, they're a lot more likely to stay with the company, and they're a lot more likely to continue to do a good job, right? So by investing in education, companies, first of all, they enhance their they enhance their bud tender, their employee loyalty. Employees are more likely to stay with them and continue to work with that shop, okay? Furthermore, when you've got educated bud tenders in your store making recommendations to customers, you're going to sell more because they're able to better understand what the customer's needs are, figure out, like, think about what the products in store that are available that meet that customer's need, and then make the right recommendations to the customer. Especially when you're able to explain it, the customer goes, oh, that bud tender really understood what I was looking for, and they recommended some really good products for me. I'm going to go home with these products. I'm going to try them out. If they work, great. If they don't, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to go back and listen to that bud tender's recommendation again, because they clearly know what they're talking about, and they're interested in making personalized recommendations for me. Okay. So, and then the outcome of that is enhanced customer loyalty, because the customer says, I'm always going to go back to that same shop. I want to speak to those bud tenders again. I want to get that great customer service and hear those recommendations. So the business case for employee training is strong. You get an improved employee experience, increased customer spend, and enhanced customer loyalty.
It's a domino effect, right? A good bud tender equals a happy customer equals a repeat customer, and that's just good for business, right?
That's right. So that's exactly right.
So Tabitha, what gaps in cannabis education does Level Up specifically address? You mentioned that there was a huge gap in the market when you created Level Up. So how does it provide this unique selling proposition for businesses? Why should businesses come to Level Up to educate their bud tenders?
So there are two reasons for this. Number one is the structure of the course itself. And number two is the way the course is presented. So the structure of the course, it's laid out in 3 modules. And the first module takes a look at the endocannabinoid system, the cannabis plant, how those two things work together. So bud tenders learn how cannabis works with the human body. They learn about the 4 different factors in a cannabis experience and why they can never promise an exact outcome to a customer, but they understand the different factors that will go into that outcome. The second module takes an in-depth look at cannabis products. So we talk about how cannabis is grown, differentiators and dried cannabis, and then we talk about products like pre-rolls, vape carts, edibles, beverages, topicals, all those other categories that are super important for a lot of consumers, but bud tenders aren't always very comfortable in explaining them and explaining how they work. So that's the second module. We get really in-depth into that. And then in the third module, we have a customer service and sales methodology focus. So the bud tenders know exactly how to meet their customers, ask the right questions of those customers, and really make solid recommendations that customers can then feel comfortable and confident taking. So the structure of the course is the first reason. The second reason the second gap in the market that Level Up really addresses is the language in which the course is taught with. So I'm a teacher. My background is in education, and I am really skilled at taking complex information and translating it to a way of speaking that makes sense for people. So Level Up is taught, we use some pretty advanced and sophisticated scientific concepts in Level Up, but all of the language is common everyday language that bud tenders can then use in interactions with their customers. They don't have to try to figure out what I'm talking about or translate these big words or, understand the scientific mumbo jumbo that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's taught in a way that is immediately accessible and applicable for bud tenders and for customers in retail shops.
That is so important. And I think that's such a huge selling point as well, because as you said, a lot of the terminology is really complex and confusing. I take a read through an article of some nature and I'm instantly confused. And if you think about what the consumers are thinking when they read that, to have a bud tender who's able to also explain it in simple terms, I think is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and it's so important, right? Because what's the point of explaining something if the other person can't understand it? There isn't one, right? Then you haven't explained anything. So it's really about taking this complex information that we have and sort of putting it into a format that people can understand, with people without training in cannabis or science or medicine or whatever. They can really understand because it makes sense for their everyday life, right? And that's really, I think, one of the main competitive advantages of Level Up, or of people who take Level Up, is that they walk away with their lips loaded. They know exactly how to talk about cannabis and about these products in a way that allows them to make more sales immediately, right? And ultimately, that's the goal, because if you're not making sales, your shop doesn't stay open and there's no point. So, it's the program is really designed to help bud tenders make the most effective recommendations so they can make the most sales possible in a store.
Incredible. And that's what every business wants, is to make the sale. So that is very, very important. So Tabitha, do you have any specific success stories or examples where a business or a bud tender, after implementing this Level Up education program, saw a significant positive impact? Do you have any kind of testimonial or success stories to share with us today?
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking about what story to tell you, and I think I'm going to tell one specifically about one bud tender that I worked with in Toronto. So in their store, they chose not to purchase the program for every single bud tender, but just for a few select bud tenders in their store. So I worked specifically with one of the bud tenders who did take the program, and I spoke to her both before and after she took the program. And before I said, what are some of the areas that you're really looking to improve on? What are some of the things you're really looking to get out of Level Up? And she said, I really like edibles, and there's not a lot of differentiators for edibles because everything's limited to 10 milligrams. And I feel like I could maybe do a better job of helping customers choose the right edible for them, but I don't really know what to recommend because it's all 10 milligrams and it's all the same and whatever, like some taste better than the other. So I said, okay, thank you for sharing that with me, first of all. And I want you to take the Level Up course. So she took the Level Up course. And then afterwards, I went back and I spoke with her. It was a few months later. And I said, you shared with me before you took the course that you really wanted to improve your knowledge on edibles. And I said, do you feel like the course helped you do that? She said, yes, absolutely. She said, I feel much more confident and comfortable now talking to my customers about all the differentiators because I know the different reasons that someone might want to choose one product versus another. She said, and not only did the edibles education help, but all of the education in Level Up on cannabinoids and on terpenes also really helped to inform my conversations because those are two areas that customers ask a lot about, and I don't always know how to answer their questions, right? Do the terpenes in these edibles actually work? Is that a thing? What are these minor cannabinoids that are listed on this edible versus the ones that I know about, right? So, and then not only that, so she said, yes, anecdotally, it helped her considerably. But then I said, do you have access to your personal sales numbers? She said, yes. So we went and we downloaded her personal sales numbers and we were able to actually get into the data and notice what categories her sales were in. And what we found was that following her completion of Level Up, her edible sales increased by 37% in store. So she was able to sell more than a third of edibles that more than she had been selling before, just because she had learned about how to make different recommendations and try different differentiators with customers. So, that's one story. And I picked that story because it's focused on edibles, which the masterclass is focused on as well. But I think it's pretty illustrative of the way a bud tender just improves when they have more context, when they have a better understanding of cannabis in general and specific products. They're better able to make recommendations for their customers and they sell more products, right? Like when you can make a better recommendation, you're going to sell more products. That's like the bottom line of sales methodology, right? So I think I'm pretty proud of that story. And I think 37% increase that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. She was happy with her boss was happy with that. That's the important part.
Absolutely. That's an incredible story. And it's tangible results. You can see how her sales increased by 37%. It's a tangible number that you can use to say, well, this was a success. And I think that's so true. A confident salesperson is the salesperson customers want to talk to. And confidence comes from having that knowledge and being knowledgeable about what you're trying to sell. That's, it's the bottom line, as you said. So what an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that, Tabitha. And on the subject of stories and experiences, I would love to dive a little bit into your experience and insights that you have kind of gathered during your tenure in the industry, if I can put it that way. And of course, Tabitha, having been on the other side as a retail professional yourself, you obviously, as you mentioned before, noticed the lack of education in the industry. Can you dive a little bit deeper into kind of before creating Level Up, what the kind of experiences were, what you saw in terms of the lack of education, and just on the subject of education as a whole, how important this is in the industry? Could you talk a little bit about those things?
Yeah. So what I saw before I created Level Up, the programs that I saw in the market were frequently one of two things. So they were either written by people who were really smart and knew a lot of stuff about weed and understood products and understood things. They really got it, but they didn't have any kind of teaching experience or experience in putting together an e-learning program or like translating that really smart brain information into stuff that normal people can understand who aren't, so advanced. And then the other things that I saw being created were by people who maybe had a more solid understanding of e-learning principles or of education principles or of andragogy, but didn't really understand everything about cannabis, right? So their knowledge and information was a bit more limited, and it wasn't usually put together in such a comprehensive way that it like told a story, that it made sense, right? So an important part of educating someone is presenting the information in a way that gives them hooks that they can go, oh yeah, that makes sense to me. Oh yeah, I get that. Oh yeah, I can internalize that. Oh yeah, I see myself in that, right? So when you have to present information, that's part of being a good teacher, is knowing how to present information to people in a way that they can absorb it and then they can learn it and then use it themselves. Because if you just sit and listen to information and you can't use it, then it's not valuable. That provides you no use, right? So what I saw before I created Level Up was that there were sort of those two streams, and I wanted to marry those streams together. I'm a cannabis expert. I have a lot of knowledge about cannabis. I've done understand the plant and how good educator. That's something, it's an innate skill set, but I've also been trained. I hold a teaching license in the state of New Jersey. So like I really wanted to focus on bringing those two things together because that's what offers value to the industry. When you create something that allows bud tenders to go, oh yeah, now I learned all of this knowledge and I've internalized it and can give it back to a customer in a way that makes sense to them, that's when you've created something powerful. So I think that I'm not sure if I answered your question because I forget what your question was, but that's the response that I have.
That is a great answer. You definitely answered my question. So thank you for that, Tabitha. Just talking a little bit more about education in general, and now since creating Level Up and post-COVID, and as things are progressing in the industry, I'm curious, have you seen kind of more of a focus on education in the industry? Is there more importance being put on that? Is that something that you've noticed kind of across the board?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that everyone that I talk to, that I tell them about Level Up, everyone goes, wow, that's so valuable. We really need that. We need that. And you see it across the board. There's more and more education being offered. People are doing different things. They're creating different platforms. Anytime you've got a nascent industry, you have to educate people, right? Because people don't know. It's not normalized yet. It's not an everyday part of society. So we've absolutely got to educate bud tenders. We've got to educate people in the industry who, work with the plant, who manufacture, who are distributors, whatever it is. And we've got to educate consumers because in terms of product knowledge, this is relatively new, right? Like cannabis has been relatively illegal for the last 100 years. So we don't have a really solid basis of knowledge in society. So we've got to pretty much teach everyone from the ground up, right? So the first part of my answer is that, yes, I think it is becoming more obviously important. More and more companies and consumers care about education and want to learn more about the plant, the product, how to use it. But the second part of my answer is that the cannabis industry is so financially challenged that it's difficult for many retailers and many companies to actually invest in their bud tender education and in education across the board, because it becomes something that they go, oh, I can't get a return on that immediately, right? Not thinking about the long-term effects. Like one bud tender is going to increase her edible sales by 37%. What happens when you train all of your bud tenders, right? So all of your sales are going to increase across the board. But it's when you've got, negative money in your bank, it's really hard to make that justification, which, I understand. So I think that it is becoming more obviously increasingly important to people, but at the same time, companies are challenged to find ways to fund that education.
And that's really important. And of course, that's I think an overall problem. Businesses don't necessarily want to spend more money than they're making or more than they have in their pocket. But for something like this, which is something that can increase sales, increase revenue, just drive your business forward. I think it's really worth investing in something like that. And we'll talk a little bit more later about the Canadian job grant and how that can help retail stores. But before we get onto all of that, can you share any personal anecdotes or lessons that you learned that played a role in shaping the Level Up course, Tabitha?
Yeah, so there was one time before I created the Level Up course, I was still sort of thinking about what it was going to be and what I was going to do with it. And it was during the summer, and I was down in Kensington Market in Toronto. And I was visiting a friend who worked at a weed shop there. And on that day, she happened to be stationed at the door out front. So she was checking people's IDs as they went in. So she was outside and I was like, oh, let's chat. So we were just, standing outside chatting, catching up or whatever. And this elderly woman came out of the dispensary. She was probably, I think she told me she was in her 80s, I think. So she was a bit older. And she came out of the dispensary, and I'm always interested in hearing people's, experiences. Like, what was it like? What did you buy? What are you looking for? Blah, blah, blah. So I started chatting her up. I was like, how did you find it? What did you get? How was your experience? And she looked at my friend who obviously worked at the dispensary, and she said, oh, it was really good. And I was like, oh, okay. And, we kept talking. And then my friend got called inside. So my friend went inside. So it was just me and this woman standing outside this dispensary. And she looked and noticed that it was just the two of us. And she kind of leaned in really close and she said, now I want to tell you what I really think about the dispensary. And I was like, oh, drama, bring it. Like, what do you really think? She goes, because I had told her what I do. I said, I'm a bud tender educator. I work with bud tenders. So she said, listen, I want you to tell those bud tenders not to be so damn enthusiastic. I'm an old lady. I'm over 80 years old, and I don't need anyone to yell at me when I come into a dispensary. I don't need people to run over to me and show me things. I just want you to be calm. And I was like, oh, and like a light bulb went off in my mind. And I was like, holy crap, you got to meet customers where they're at, right? Regardless of who you're talking to, how they want to be spoken to, what they're coming in to look for, how they want to shop, how do they engage, how do they communicate, you have to be able to meet that customer where they're at, regardless of what that is, in order to offer them the best service possible and sell products in your store. And so it was in sort of that moment that I was like, oh, this whole thing is about meeting customers where they're at. You don't know anything at all about cannabis? No problem. I can explain the basics to you in a way that makes absolute sense to you, and you walk out of here smarter. Oh, you have a medium understanding of cannabis? Great. I can educate you using words that you understand. So again, you buy products and you walk out of here knowing exactly how to use them and how they're going to improve the quality of your life. You come in here and you know everything about weed? Cool. What do you want to teach me today? What are you going to teach me about weed? Because you already know everything. Now let's find the perfect product for you that you've never tried before. Right. So it was like this aha moment that regardless of if you're talking about, dried bud or how the endocannabinoid system works or what you did last Tuesday, you have to meet the customer where they're at. And so that's really what Level Up is about, is like giving bud tenders all of the information and the context they need to meet every single customer where they're at when they walk in the store so that they can provide the best possible customer service to that customer and make the sale. At the end of the day, again, this is all about making the sale, right? So offering excellent customer service enables you to do that.
That is such a great story, Tabitha. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's, as you said, that light bulb moment, and I think also because when it comes to selling cannabis products, your customer could be 21 or 91. So you also have to kind of know who you're speaking to. So I think that's a really, really interesting point, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, right. Like at any store you go into, you want someone to talk to you like you're a human, and that they can sort of understand what you need and help you get it.
Absolutely. And especially, as you said, an elderly lady who doesn't really want to have somebody in their face, but maybe a younger person would. So I think that's a very, very, very good example of tailoring the experience. And kind of on that note, what advice do you have for businesses looking to empower their employees through education based on your own journey and experiences like the one you just shared?
I think the number one thing for businesses is to invest in team education, right? A lot of times you get a company who says, oh, we're just going to train the manager or the key holder or this one bud tender, and then that information will trickle down. But unfortunately, that manager, that key holder, that bud tender, they often are not a teacher. They're not an educator who knows how to translate that information in a way that actually makes sense to other people, right? And we're presenting some like pretty heavy scientific concepts in Level Up, like volatile sulfur compounds are not super easy to understand, right? So like there's a lot of information. It's certainly possible for one manager perhaps to take the course and translate it for the rest of the staff, but it's not the most effective use of education. A, and B, I think when you invest in only one or two employees, it sends a real clear signal that you don't value the other employees as much as that one or two, right? So when businesses actually invest in training their entire team, it increases sales, it makes for a better team environment, and it signals to everyone in the store, like, we value you, we care about you, we're investing in your education, we want you to have a career path that grows through here. So I think really the number one thing is that you need to train them all. You can't just train one or two and hope for the best. It doesn't work.
That is very, very true. And it's also a great segue into the next kind of point that I would like to focus on and talk a little bit more about, and that is the Canadian job grants and how they can actually help retail stores invest in education for their bartenders, the entire team, to your point. So, Tabitha, could you shed some light on the Canadian job grants and how businesses can leverage this to support employee education in cannabis retail?
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, we don't have a lot of grants that cannabis businesses can access, right? It's a highly regulated industry, and there are not a lot of grants out there that different cannabis businesses, whether they're manufacturers or producers or distributors or retailers or whatever, can access. So I think it's super exciting when we do have a program like this one that we can get access to in the cannabis industry. So the Canada Job Grant, it's across Canada, but the way that it's administered is province specific. So each province will do it a little bit differently. But here in Ontario, for instance, companies can purchase training, they pay for training, and then they can immediately submit an application to this grant and get up to 83% off. They get 83% costs of training back through the grant. The application process, it's pretty easy. I actually went through it with like a dummy retailer because I wanted to see how difficult it was, and it's not challenging. We do have consultants available through CanMar who can help people with it as well if they don't want to do it on their own. And every province offers a slightly different amount. I forget which one, but one province will actually offer up to 100% back. So you can find specific information about that on the Level Up blog. So if you go to levelupbud.com, that's the website. On the blog there, we've got every single province listed, including what percentage off and how to apply for that specific province. But I think everybody should take advantage of this, because if you can get most of your training covered and paid for by the government, why wouldn't you, right? Especially with all of these benefits of training that we've been talking about here. So I really, really encourage every retail shop to apply to see if, they can get that grant.
Absolutely. I mean, up to 80% off, maybe even 100%, depending on the province. It's really a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you go ahead and do that if it's going to only help your business and your revenue overall? How does this financial assistance contribute to the overall growth and success of a business in the cannabis industry?
Listen, the economic environment for cannabis businesses is super challenging right now, right? Like across the board, I think everybody knows that. So, at the same time, I think businesses also understand, the value and the benefits of investing in education, right? You're going to improve your employee experience, you're going to increase your customer spend, and you're going to enhance customer loyalty at the end of the day, right? It's this domino effect that really, like, you sell more products when you've invested in education for your team. Right. So the Canada Job Grant, I think it's so important, and I'm grateful to the government for providing it, because it lets cannabis businesses actually take that step to providing education for their employees without having to pay an arm and a leg for it, because companies just don't have that right now. Right. So in order to get ahead as a differentiator, it would be really wise to invest in staff training and in education for your employees. And so, it's challenging to pay for that off the bat. So the grant offers an opportunity for retailers to access it for like a really reduced cost. And, I can't obviously make any promises, but I think that whatever you spend on it, you're going to recoup pretty quickly in increased sales, because your bud tenders are going to know how to make the right recommendations, and they're going to sell more products to your happy customers who keep coming back to your shop. Right. So, it's about taking a little bit more of a long-term perspective on it and understanding that investment will have returns in the not too long term, right? Pretty shortly, you're going to start seeing returns on that investment.
100%. And it really is, in that case, an investment in the future of the business and the longevity of the business.
That's right. That's exactly right. Right. And not only are you enabling your business to continue because you've got enough money to keep the lights on and keep operating, but you're also keeping your employees loyal to you, right? When they know, oh, my employer spent $700 to train me on this program, whatever it was, you know what I mean? That I must be valuable to them. They must want to see me succeed. They must want to see me do well. So you know what? I'm going to stick around here, and I'm going to be loyal to them just like they were loyal to me. So you're not only, increasing your profitability, but you're increasing your customer or your employee loyalty, which is super, super important for the long-term longevity of your
100%. Really excellent point. It's really kind of it's a full picture. It's not just one part. Okay, training your bartender. It's really kind of all-encompassing success for everyone involved, which is, why wouldn't you jump at that opportunity? So go check out those Canadian job grants and get your bartenders the Level Up education program. It's the way to go if you want your business to succeed and do really, really well. So Tabitha, as we wrap up here today, any final thoughts, anything else you'd like to share with the audience about Level Up, about the masterclass, or education in cannabis? Any final thoughts?
You know what? I'm just really excited to be here, right? Like, I think it's so exciting that we've reached this place on the planet at this time where cannabis is becoming legalized around the world, where consumers are learning how to access cannabis as an intentional choice for their wellness and therapeutic choices, right? And I'm so grateful to be in this role at this time, offering education to people in a way that improves the quality of people's lives, right? Whether it's a retail shop owner who has a more profitable store, or a bud tender who's better at their job, or a consumer who's better able to get their questions answered. I'm grateful to be able to offer something that truly makes the world a better place. And I think that, anyone who is serious about cannabis and who's still sticking around in our challenging industry at this time deserves the opportunity to also, recognize themselves as making the world a better place. So I would like to say, thank you to everyone who's watching this. Thank you to everyone who's in the cannabis industry, who's stuck it out, who stayed here with us. Thank you to everyone who engages in the masterclass. Thank you to everyone who takes Level Up. Like, we are all in this together. So let's continue to support each other, and I will continue to put out quality educational offerings as my role in making this industry and world a better place. So I cannot wait to see all of you in the masterclass, and hopefully I will see you in Level Up as well.
I absolutely love that. And thank you, Tabitha, so much for joining us today for this really insightful Q&A session. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to the brilliant mind behind the CanMar's exclusive Level Up Edibles Masterclass and the entire Level Up Bartender Education Program. What a pleasure. Thank you for being here, Tabitha.
Thank you so much, Melissa. This was great.
And as we wrap up, I just want to extend a special invitation to all of our viewers once again to take that next step in your cannabis retail journey. If you're hungry for knowledge, if you're eager to transform your business and ready to elevate your success, the Level Up Masterclass and entire Level Up Bartender Education Program is your gateway. The link to register for the masterclass is in the description of the video, or you can find more information about Level Up, the masterclass, and CanMar on our website, canmar.io. And don't forget that this masterclass is free for 1 week only. So what are you waiting for? Register now. But wait, there's more. What if we also told you that you could have the entire cannabis, psychedelics, and health and wellness network right at your fingertips? Well, you can by downloading our community app and becoming a member of the Hub by CanMar. Plus, we're also thrilled to announce the launch of the official CanMar Level Up private community group on the Hub, an exclusive space for masterclass participants, Level Up joiners, everyone to join, connect, collaborate, and thrive in this educational space on the Hub app. Plus, you will also get access to all the other amazing features the community has to offer. Connect with fellow cannabis enthusiasts, share ideas, and stay ahead in the industry. Available for download on Android and iOS app stores. Your journey to success starts right here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tabitha. And until next time, engage, educate, and elevate with CanMar and Level Up.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for watching or listening to the CanMar Morning Talk Show. Join us next time for your weekly dose of cannabis and psychedelics updates from the industry's experts. But before you go, don't forget that CanMar, we specialize in recruitment and licensing and compliance for highly regulated industries such as cannabis, hemp, and psychedelics. Visit us at canmar.io to book a free consultation with one of our specialists today. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button to hear more juicy insights from the movers and shakers of the cannabis and psychedelics industry.